My name is Florence D. Wallace. I am 31 years old and I work as a software developer for a mid-sized health tech company in Denver. Most of my days are predictable. Stand-up meeting at 9 o'clock, blocks of coding, gym after work, then dinner at home. I like structure. I am not dramatic by nature. My boyfriend, Matthew Carter, is 29. We have been together for just over a year and a half. We do not live together, but he stays at my apartment about 4 nights a week. We have talked casually about moving in next year. Matthew is confident and sharp, and if I am being honest, cutting when he feels challenged. He has a habit of framing everything like a test. If I react calmly, he pushes harder. If I question something, he says I am insecure. Chloe is a coworker of his. I have met her once at a birthday bar night. Friendly, loud, the type who makes a point of hugging everyone's boyfriend. She has a long-term boyfriend named Daniel. Matthew always described their relationship as solid. The issue started last Thursday around 7:30 p.m. Matthew texted me out of nowhere. "I'm spending the night at Chloe's. Her boyfriend is fine with it, so why aren't you?" That was the entire message. No lead-in, no explanation. I stared at my phone for a full minute before responding. We had never discussed him staying overnight at another woman's place, not as a joke, not hypothetically. It was not a boundary we had ever needed to debate. I replied simply, "Because I'm not." He immediately sent back 3 messages in a row, one calling me controlling, one saying I needed to work on my insecurity, one saying it is 2026 and adults can have platonic sleepovers. The tone was not reassuring. It was combative. What stood out more than the content was the detail he volunteered. Her boyfriend is fine with it. That felt strategic. So instead of arguing with Matthew in circles, I opened Instagram and searched for Daniel. I had followed him months ago after that birthday night. He followed me back. I screenshotted Matthew's text and forwarded it to Daniel with one line underneath. "Hey, just checking that this is accurate. I did not insult anyone. I did not accuse anyone. I just asked for confirmation." Within 10 minutes, Daniel responded. "Accurate about what?" That was when I realized this was about to get complicated. When Daniel replied with "accurate about what," I knew immediately Matthew had either lied or assumed he would never be cross-checked. I sent Daniel the screenshot. There was a 5-minute gap with no response. Then my phone started buzzing. First, Daniel. He asked me what exactly was going on. His tone was controlled, but clearly confused. He said he had no idea Matthew planned to stay over. He said Chloe mentioned grabbing drinks with coworkers. Nothing about anyone sleeping at their place. While I was typing back, Matthew called. I declined the call and texted him that I was in the middle of something. He immediately sent a message asking why I was involving other people. That was telling. I had not told him I contacted Daniel yet. 2 minutes later, Daniel messaged again. He said he had just called Chloe. She did not pick up. He said she was at a bar across town, not at home. That detail mattered. Matthew had texted me at 7:30, saying he was spending the night at Chloe's. If she was not even home yet, what exactly was the plan? Then Matthew called again. This time I answered. He sounded irritated, not apologetic. He asked if I had reached out to Daniel. I said yes. There was a pause. Then he said that was completely unnecessary and that I embarrassed him. I asked him directly, "Did Daniel agree to you staying over?" He said it was implied. I asked what implied meant. He got louder, said adults do not need permission slips, said I was making this weird. While he was talking, another call came through. Daniel again. I told Matthew I would call him back and switched lines. Daniel's voice was different now, less confused, more focused. He said Chloe just texted him saying Matthew might crash on their couch because he drank too much. Might crash. That was not the same as, her boyfriend is fine with it. Daniel then asked me something simple. Did Matthew tell you this earlier in the week? No. He said this was the first he had heard of it, and that was when my phone started vibrating with a third incoming call. Matthew. Matthew's name flashing across my screen felt almost predictable. I declined it the first time, not because I was avoiding him, but because I wanted clarity from Daniel first. He was the only person so far who seemed genuinely unaware. Daniel told me he had just texted Chloe again, asking directly if Matthew was staying the night. Her response was vague. She said, "It depends how late it gets." She added that Matthew was being dramatic about his girlfriend. That word stood out. Dramatic. Daniel asked me if we had fought earlier. I told him no. This was the first I had heard of any plan. He went quiet for a second and then said, "This feels off." While we were still on the phone, Matthew called again. This time I answered. He opened with an annoyed laugh. What are you doing? Why are you dragging Daniel into this? I asked him calmly if he was spending the night at Chloe's place. He said, "Probably not. I just said that to see how you'd react." That sentence landed heavier than the rest. To see how I would react. Then he added that he told Chloe I was controlling and that he needed space. That was new information. I had not argued with him. I had not raised my voice. I had sent one sentence. Matthew then said something else. "Look, I'm here right now, and Chloe's upset that you texted Daniel. Here, right now, not crashing later. Not maybe after drinks. Already there." I asked to speak to Chloe. There was a muffled exchange on his end. Then Chloe got on the phone. She sounded tense. She said I was blowing this out of proportion. She said normal girlfriends do not fact-check their boyfriends with other men. She said I made Matthew look stupid. I asked her one question. "Were you planning for him to stay at your apartment tonight?" She hesitated, then said yes, but on the couch, and that Daniel knows they are friends. I told her Daniel said he did not know. That silence lasted longer than the others. In the background, I heard Daniel's voice through her speaker, asking why she said probably not earlier. Now all four of us were aware the stories were not lining up. And then my phone started buzzing again. Daniel calling back. Matthew still on the other line. Text coming in rapid fire saying, "You just ruined everything." For about 30 seconds, my phone would not stop vibrating. Jake was not the problem. Chloe was not the problem. The real issue was that Matthew had built different versions of the same night for different audiences, and I had just forced them into the same room. For about 30 seconds, my phone would not stop vibrating. Daniel was calling again. Matthew was still on one line. Chloe was texting me that I had just created unnecessary drama. It felt chaotic in the moment, but underneath the noise, something inside me was getting very quiet, very clear. I ended the call with Matthew first. Then I answered Daniel. His tone had shifted completely. No confusion left, just controlled anger. He said he had just put Chloe on speaker and asked her directly if Matthew was staying over. She tried to minimize it, saying it was just a couch situation and that I was overreacting. Daniel asked her if she would be comfortable with him sleeping at a female coworker's apartment. She did not answer clearly. That silence apparently told him enough. He said he was driving to Chloe's apartment right now. Meanwhile, Matthew called again. I picked up. He immediately started attacking. Said I embarrassed him in front of Chloe. Said Daniel was overdramatic and that this whole thing was spiraling because I could not trust him. He framed it like I had created chaos out of nothing. I asked him calmly why he told me Daniel was fine with it if Daniel had no idea. He said he assumed Daniel would be fine, that they are secure, that not everyone is as insecure as me. That word again, insecure. I asked if he told Chloe that I was controlling. He said maybe he vented a little. That was interesting. He was building narratives on multiple sides. To me, he framed it as harmless and pre-approved. To Chloe, he framed me as restrictive. To Daniel, apparently, nothing was said at all. While he was talking, I heard a knock in the background on his end of the line. Then another. Matthew went quiet. Chloe's voice came faintly through, saying, "I didn't think you would actually come." "Daniel." Matthew suddenly said he had to go and hung up. 2 seconds later, Chloe called. I did not answer. Then Daniel called. I picked up. "I'm standing in her living room," he said. "Your boyfriend is here, and he brought a bag." A bag. Not just crashing because he drank too much. Not spontaneous. A packed overnight bag sitting next to the couch. And now 4 people were standing in that apartment, each realizing they had been told slightly different versions of the same story. According to Daniel, the scene was tense but quiet. Matthew's overnight bag was placed neatly by the couch. Not a gym bag. Not something accidental. A bag with clothes folded inside. Daniel asked Matthew directly how long he planned to stay. Matthew tried to play it off. Said he did not want to Uber home late. Said I was being unreasonable and he needed space. He framed it like he was escaping a controlling girlfriend and Chloe was just being supportive. Daniel then asked Chloe if she invited Matthew to stay the night. She hesitated. That hesitation was becoming a pattern. Chloe said it was not a big deal. That they are friends. That Matthew said I would not mind. Daniel responded that he did mind. Matthew apparently rolled his eyes and said, "This is ridiculous. We are all adults." He added that if Daniel trusted Chloe, this would not be an issue. That comment did not land well. Daniel told me he looked at the bag and asked Matthew why he packed clothes for the next day, if this was a spontaneous couch crash. Matthew said he likes to be prepared. The problem with layered stories is that eventually they overlap. While Daniel was confronting them, Matthew texted me. This got out of hand fast. That wording irritated me more than anything else, as if the situation just happened to them, as if no one made choices. Daniel stayed on the phone with me. while he stepped outside the apartment to calm down. He told me Chloe had minimized her closeness with Matthew before, said Matthew vents about me a lot at work, said she portrayed it as harmless. That was the first time I realized this was not a one-night impulse. This was groundwork. Meanwhile, Matthew started blowing up my phone again. He accused me of humiliating him, said I weaponized Daniel to win an argument, said I crossed a line by sharing private messages. I responded once. You crossed the line when you tried to make me question reality. That was when my phone lit up with a three-way call attempt. Matthew, Chloe, Daniel, all at the same time. No one was aligned anymore, and none of them were in control of the narrative the way they thought they were. I declined the three-way call, not because I was avoiding it, but because I did not want a chaotic shouting match over speakerphone. I wanted clean statements, not emotional noise. Daniel texted instead. He said he told Chloe to choose in that moment. Either Matthew leaves or he does. Chloe apparently tried to calm both of them down, said this was being blown out of proportion, said nothing physical happened. Nothing physical happened. No one had accused them of anything physical. That phrase came out of nowhere, and that was revealing. Matthew then sent me a long paragraph. He said I forced him into a corner. Said he only packed a bag because he thought I would overreact and not let him come back to my place. Said he needed a safe space to think. I read that twice. If he thought I would not let him come back, that means he already expected consequences before I even reacted. Daniel called again about 10 minutes later. He said Matthew refused to leave at first. Said he kept insisting this was about controlling girlfriends and insecure women. Said he tried to reframe the entire thing into a trust exercise. Matthew eventually left the apartment around midnight. Not because he suddenly understood boundaries, but because Daniel made it clear he would walk out otherwise. Matthew called me as he waited for a ride. This time his tone was different, less aggressive, more wounded. He said I destroyed his friendship. Said Chloe was one of his only work allies. Said Daniel now hates him. He kept circling back to the idea that I escalated something that could have been handled privately. I asked him one final question. If Daniel had never found out, would you have told him yourself? He did not answer. Instead, he said, "You never trusted me anyway." That is the common defense when the facts are inconvenient. The next morning, I woke up to 3 missed calls. One from Matthew, one from Chloe, and one from an unknown number. When I answered the unknown number, it was Matthew's manager. And that was when I realized this had moved beyond just the 4 of us. When Matthew's manager called, I almost let it ring out. I did not owe anyone anything at that point. But I answered. He introduced himself calmly and said there had been a complaint filed about inappropriate conduct between coworkers after hours. He would not give details, but he asked whether I had been contacted by anyone involved. I kept it simple. I said I had received calls from Matthew and Chloe and that I had no intention of escalating anything professionally. He thanked me and said the company would handle it internally. That meant Daniel had already done something. About 10 minutes later, Matthew called again. I did not pick up. He left a voicemail saying I needed to fix this. Then he suggested he could lose his job because I could not handle my emotions. That framing was the final confirmation I needed. I texted him once. I did not create your choices. I only exposed them. Then I blocked his number. Not impulsively, not angrily. I opened my phone, selected his contact, and hit block. Then I blocked him on every social platform we shared. Instagram, Snapchat, even LinkedIn. Clean break. Within minutes, he tried calling from a different number. Blocked. Then came a long email accusing me of sabotage and betrayal. I read it once, forwarded it to a separate folder, and set a filter to archive future messages automatically. No more real-time access. Chloe texted me too. She said, "This spiraled out of control." Said Daniel reported it because he felt disrespected. Said she never meant for Matthew to stay over if it would cause problems. I did not respond. I was not her partner. I was not her employer. Their situation was a result of their own decisions. By afternoon, mutual friends started messaging me, asking what happened. Apparently, Matthew had told people I went through his phone and harassed Daniel. That was predictable. When you lose control of a narrative, you rewrite it. But I had screenshots, timestamps, clean, simple proof. One friend asked directly, "Did you really try to get him fired?" I responded with a single screenshot. The original message where Matthew said he was spending the night at Chloe's and that her boyfriend was fine with it. No commentary, just context. The friend replied, "Oh." That seemed to be the general reaction once people saw the sequence. Daniel messaged me once more to say thank you. He said he would rather know uncomfortable truths than be managed through half stories. He told me he ended things with Chloe that morning. Apparently, this was not the first boundary she blurred at work. Matthew sent one last text from yet another number. I hope this doesn't follow me professionally. I did not respond. I was not his manager. I was not his safety net. The more I thought about it, the clearer it became. This was never about a couch. It was about testing boundaries and seeing how much I would tolerate. And once I blocked him, there was nothing left to test. The first 48 hours after I blocked Matthew were louder socially, but quieter personally. He could not reach me directly anymore, so he tried indirect routes. One of our mutual friends texted asking if I really invaded his privacy and caused a workplace investigation. I sent the same screenshot again. No commentary, no emotional defense, just facts. Silence followed. Clarity has a way of draining drama of its oxygen. By the third day, the noise started to die down. No more alternate numbers calling, no more long defensive emails, just quiet. And that quiet felt earned. It is strange how quickly stability returns once you remove someone's access to rewrite your reality in real time. There was no dramatic heartbreak scene, no begging, no final closure meeting, just documented facts and a clean block. What surprised me most was not that he tested the boundary. It was how confidently he assumed I would accept it. That assumption was the real problem. About a week after everything happened, I ran into Matthew by accident. Not dramatic, not cinematic, just at a grocery store on a Tuesday evening. He saw me first. I could tell because he froze mid-step near the produce section. For a second, it looked like he was debating whether to pretend he had not noticed me. Instead, he walked over. His tone was different than before. No sarcasm, no edge, just tired. He asked if we could talk. I said briefly. He started by saying things spiraled further than he expected. He said Chloe was under internal review at work and that people were talking. He said Daniel told others what happened, and now it looked worse than it was. I asked him what part looked worse than it was. He did not answer that directly. Instead, he said he never intended to cheat. He said he just wanted to prove he could have independence without being policed. That word again. Policed. I reminded him I never told him he could not see Chloe. I questioned one specific overnight boundary. That is not policing. That is relationship context. He sighed and said I made him look like a liar. I told him he made himself look like one. There was no yelling, just uncomfortable honesty. He asked if I would consider unblocking him so we could talk properly. I said no, not out of anger, out of consistency. If I unblocked him, we would return to reactive cycles. I had already seen how quickly he reframed things when convenient. He looked frustrated but also tired. Before walking away, he said, "You really ended us over one night." I told him no. We ended over the assumption that my boundaries were optional. He did not respond to that. He just grabbed his basket and left the aisle. And that was it. No dramatic goodbye, just distance. It has been about 2 months now. Matthew's situation at work settled quietly. From what I heard through mutual connections, he was formally warned and transferred teams. Not fired, just repositioned. Chloe and Daniel are no longer together. Matthew stopped trying to reach me after the grocery store conversation. I kept him blocked. No secret checking his profiles. No asking friends for updates. I do not need surveillance to feel secure, and I do not need closure meetings to validate a decision that was already clear. Looking back, the part that stands out is not the sleepover itself. It was the framing. He did not ask if I was comfortable. He did not say, "Can we talk about this?" He declared he was spending the night at another woman's apartment and framed my discomfort as a flaw. That is not independence. That is pressure disguised as progress. If he had approached it transparently, we might have had a discussion. Maybe we would have disagreed. Maybe we would have compromised. But he chose to test instead of talk. And when I cross-checked his story, he reacted like exposure was betrayal. That tells you everything about the foundation. The morning after I blocked him, 3 different people were calling me at the same time. It felt chaotic then. Now it just feels instructive. When multiple narratives collapse at once, the common denominator is usually the person managing them. I do not feel angry anymore. I feel aligned with what I expect from a partner and what I will not negotiate around. It was never about controlling where he slept. It was about whether my boundaries were something he respected or something he tried to work around. Once I saw the answer clearly, the decision was simple. And simple is easier to live with than constant doubt.